Pokémon is a series known for its kid-friendly nature. While not specifically made for kids, it always keeps them in mind when going about its business, which ultimately results in the series staying within a certain threshold of appropriateness for younger audiences. However, despite what you may think when viewing it from the surface, Pokémon is no stranger to including very dark and mature elements in their games, and some of these are so dark and disturbing that not even the creators themselves, Game Freak, will admit to it. That is what we are looking at today as we celebrate the culmination of Spoopy Month, which is all made possible by the wonderful sponsor of today's video, UCast Studios, who I run my Pokemon podcast with, and Moorpark College.
Are you ready to jumpstart your future? Moorpark College is still accepting new students for the fall semester, and you can enroll right now. Whatever your goal, whether it be to earn a certificate or degree, explore your interests right out of high school, or learn skills to pave the way to a new career, your future awaits at Moorpark College. Step into your future today at moorparkcollege.edu/CE.
So starting us off is one rather dark element about the original Pokemon games, Pokemon Red and Blue, as well as the anime that accompanied it at the time. Without question, I would say the overall coolest and most sought-after Pokemon in those games is Mewtwo. It's a legendary, obviously, it's kind of a secret Pokemon as well that you can't unlock until you beat the game, and its power and prestige is unmatched. It also has a really cool looking design as well, and it's how Mewtwo looks specifically that is particularly intriguing. With it being a clone of Mew, have you ever wondered why it looks so different? Like, sure, it's beefed up, but it really shouldn't look that different from what it was cloned from. Well, that's because Mewtwo is likely not just a clone of Mew. The main significant difference between Mew and Mewtwo is their size. Mewtwo is much bigger and also humanoid in its body style. And, well, maybe you can see where I'm going with this, but this is most likely because Mewtwo is half human. This takes information from the anime to fully explain, but it's very possible that Mewtwo has DNA inside of it from Dr. Fuji's dead daughter. In the anime, just like in the games, Dr. Fuji is the one who created Mewtwo, but in the anime, it's explained that he was recruited by Team Rocket because he had already been working on cloning technology to try and bring his daughter Amber back to life. It is shown in the anime that the Amber clone was being worked on at the same time as the Mewtwo clone, but sadly died as well, so since Dr. Fuji's main motivation was to bring his daughter back to life anyway, it could have been the case that some of her DNA was integrated into the Mewtwo clone, in order to help her live on in some capacity, which was his biggest dream and goal. It's also possible that general human DNA was added simply as a way to make the Pokemon more powerful, but regardless of which way you look at it, knowing that one of the franchise's most popular Pokemon is most likely a half-Pokemon, half-human science experiment that was motivated by greed, a lust for power, and the sadness and pain of losing a loved one is a really, really warped and twisted backstory for anything in Pokemon to have, let alone one of its top representatives. And that is why Game Freak and the Pokemon Company would never truly come out and say this, even though it's very apparently the case. Here's another one I came across not too long ago that is scarily eye-opening, and once again, it makes you realize that Pokémon is actually a much darker series than it is perceived as due to its happy, bright exterior. Throughout the various Pokémon games and regions, there are a few desert areas. For example, there's the desert on Route 111 in Hoenn, the desert of Route 4 in Unova, and the Haina Desert in Alola. There are some other desert-like areas elsewhere, but when it comes to dedicated and traditional desert locations, this is what we have seen in Pokémon so far. With that said, it's rather unsettling that of all the places these desert areas are located, they are found where very significant acts of war and terrorist attacks were committed. Hoenn's desert, with Hoenn being based on the Kyushu region of Japan, lines up with where one of the atomic bombs was dropped on Japan during World War II. Unova's desert, with Unova being based on the New York area of the US, is consistent with the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and Alola's Haina desert, with Alola being based on Hawaii, is consistent with the bombing of Pearl Harbor that occurred in Hawaii also in World War II. Combine that with the fact that a desolate, lifeless desert area is a very good way to represent these kinds of war zones without actually directly referring to them and thus upping the maturity level of the games. It seems an awful lot like Game Freak might actually be intentionally referring to these events in their games and doing it repeatedly by including these desert areas. And while they would never admit to it, that is a dark as heck underlying theme for a video game series to have if I've ever heard one. Speaking of World War II, this is an event that Game Freak seems to really like to reference in Pokémon games, because they seem to have done it multiple times. They would never tell you that, but it seems like the Hoenn region is practically one big reference to World War II. And as we learned in my previous video, the Hoenn games, particularly Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, are easily the darkest Pokémon games ever for the amount of this kind of stuff they have included in them. I made an entire video detailing how Hoenn was inspired by World War II not too long ago, but essentially, you've got the fact that Hoenn's desert that was previously mentioned is located in almost the exact location in relation to real-life Japan where one of the atomic bombs was dropped, the idea that Verdanturf Town and its premise of being protected by its weather patterns is extremely consistent with a town in Japan that was also protected from an atomic bomb thanks to its weather, and the fact that New Mauville is a thing, which is quite literally an underground bunker built in case of some kind of cataclysmic event, like an atomic bomb being dropped on you. Once you get on the trail of this, the evidence honestly just keeps piling up, so I recommend checking out that aforementioned video if you want to learn more, cause it's certainly nothing Game Freak will tell us about, but it's very convincing that it is indeed the case, which is really shocking. World War II continues to be the theme of this video, as another ginormous World War II reference is literally the entire plot of Pokémon X and Y. This is one that Game Freak has actually directly denied in an interview with Game Informer, but that is to be expected with the amount of disturbing that it is, especially for a franchise like Pokémon. This one has been well documented, and I know that some people buy it and some people don't, but I don't really get why that is, to be honest, because as far as I'm concerned, it is glaringly obvious that the general outline of X and Y's plot was directly inspired by the events of World War II. First off, Kalos is based on France, which played a huge role in World War II and was right in the thick of it all. The backstory of Kalos also involves a war, which was ended with the use of a cataclysmically powerful weapon. Team Flare, the antagonists in Kalos, have a goal which involves wiping out everyone who they deem not beautiful. That sounds kind of familiar. And their signature invention is called the Holocaster. That is literally one letter away from spelling Holocaust if you dropped the ER at the end. Like, it honestly doesn't get any more clear than this. There's also the fact that AZ is very likely inspired, at least partially, by the tale of the Wandering Jew. So, yeah, don't believe this if you want, I guess, but in my opinion, this is as confirmed to be true as anything could ever possibly be without actually being directly confirmed by the creators themselves, which, as I said, is never going to happen because Game Freak don't want Pokemon's good name to be tarnished by their dark brand of storytelling. So I guess this will just have to remain a theory for years to come. And last but not least, we have one that is actually a lot more theoretical, because it deals with some cut content, which we obviously can only ever theorize about. But it does bring forth an interesting idea that is also very dark. So during Pokemon Gold and Silver's infamous beta stages, most of which have been leaked at this point, Johto was a lot different. In fact, it actually used the entirety of Japan as inspiration instead of just the Kansai region like in the final games. This caused its beta cities and towns to be sprawled out all over real-life Japan, and there's one whose architecture contains what appear to be some characters of the unknown. Now, this brought up the theory, which isn't one I created by the way, it just kind of floated its way onto the internet, that the unknown could have something to do with, you guessed it, World War II. The town where their markings appear lines up fairly consistently with the site of the atomic bomb droppings in real-world Japan, but the consistencies don't just stop there. There's obviously the fact that the unknown are found in the ruins of Alph, with ruins being consistent with this event, and creepiest of all, the way that the unknown lie on the floor and walls of the ruins has been compared to the shadows of people that were burned into the ground and on the walls of buildings following the explosion of the bomb. It might be just a theory, and one that we'll never know for sure if it's true, but it makes some very unsettling and disturbing connections that, if they are any kind of true, really just goes to show what Game Freak is willing to do in Pokemon, and what they did do in the generations that followed. And there you have it. Those were some disturbing things that have been included in Pokemon games over the years. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new for more Pokemon content, because it really does help. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and with that said, I will see you guys soon with another video. Until then, as always, thank you so much for watching, I love you all very much, and I will smell you guys later.